Hello everybody, XPGamesNL here, and welcome back to a new video. Welcome to a new series on the channel, actually. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the newest update for Fire Emblem The Prophecy of Flames. I'm happy to announce that Fire Emblem The Prophecy of Flames version 1.4.0 is now released to the public. It's the first update of Fire Emblem The Prophecy of Flames that is more feature-focused, actually. There is some new content, but that is mainly the prologue being split up into two parts now, and some additions to one of the chapters which we'll dive into later. This patch was made to change a few things in the ROM that don't really have to do with adding new stuff, like changing item icons, adjusting the colors on portraits, just a bunch of stuff like that, which we'll dive into in a second. The reason this video exists and why it will probably become a series on the channel is because I can sort of release a patch and make a thread on FE Universe, but I guess this way this reaches my audience just a little bit more, as well as I can just upload a video here, then possibly post it on the FE Universe thread, because maybe a video might be more engaging than just a bunch of letters on the screen, and thus I thought, maybe this is the better way to sort of promote a new patch being out, and maybe this could get people more interested to give it a go. So depending on how well this video does, or at least like how big the reception is, I might do this in the future as well, for new patches that I release in the future. Anyway, let's actually dive into the first thing and the biggest change to Fire Emblem The Prophecy of Flames with this patch. Let's dive into the split prologue. After having a very vivid dream of a really interesting siege of a castle, I decided to split up the prologue of Fire Emblem The Prophecy of Flames into two chapters. The original prologue is still intact, it's just the second act of the prologue, which you will get to after beating the first act, which is completely new. A new character has been added to Fire Emblem The Prophecy of Flames, and he's the thumbnail boy for this video actually. His name is Walter. Walter is Tim's weapon instructor, and he's also a soldier that fought alongside Sir Land in the war against Lavinium. He will actually be the boss of the prologue. If you want to find out why, well, you'll just have to play the prologue for yourself. The prologue had significant changes on part of the early game of Fire Emblem The Prophecy of Flames as well. Not only do you get different items right now, because Tim starts out with an iron sword to complement his rapier if he's not fighting against armor knights or cavalry, but you also get an extra vulnerary, and there's extra levels to be gained. Throughout the prologue, a lot of the encounters against enemies are quite set up so that you kind of get a bit of a scripted and simulated experience. But there's still a little bit of fun to be had with your positioning in this prologue. Also, the first chapter of the game literally has a pre-promoted boss already, a Great Knight boss in chapter 1, or technically the first chapter in the entire game. Now that is interesting. Some character stats had to be adjusted as well. Tim now has 1 extra defense, and Jared lost a bunch of his base speed to complement the fact that he will get a lot more speed later down the line in the game. If you're a music enjoyer, you will enjoy the prologue a lot more due to the fact that some new tracks have been added into the game in order to simulate a sort of dreaded feel or a bit of an endgame feel to the first chapter of the game. After all, we will of course be returning to Germania Castle later down the line. So why not have some of that late game music play here to start things off on a high note? If you are really bad at Fire Emblem and you actually lose Jared in the prologue chapter, you will actually get a special end conversation that talks a little bit about Jared and is a little bit different from the original end conversation that you have at the end of this prologue chapter. As well as if you do make it to chapter 1, by all miracles, you will actually get a different version of Mavis, who has 3 less levels, so he gains more levels in total, while retaining the same base stats, as well as he comes with a complimentary Draco shield, because you need that stat booster then. Personally, I do not really know if that sacrifice is worth it in the end. After all, you might just need Jared that little bit extra in chapter 2, but I'm curious to see what people will do with this information. The original prologue chapter has now been moved to chapter 2, or the second chapter of the game. It's literally the same chapter and it's completely intact. The only difference might be the starting cutscene, because it picks up right as Jared, Sir Land, and Tim escape the castle, or just Sir Land and Tim if you decided to, lose Jared in the previous prologue chapter. This chapter really hasn't changed that much. The only thing that has slightly changed are the enemy levels, because in the last chapter you might have leveled up Tim once or twice, causing these enemies to feel a little bit weaker. I am very happy to report though that the teleportation bug with Samson has been fixed. So now he won't teleport to you like he would do in the original version of the Prologue chapter. It was a bit weird and I didn't know how to fix the bug, but apparently by rewriting the events it has fixed itself or something like that. Anyway, very happy to see that Samson has forgot how to teleport. The last thing that I should mention here is that normally in chapter 1 you get an iron sword from the village that you visit right at the start of the map. This iron sword has now been changed into a steel sword, as it was usually meant to give you a backup weapon for Tim to use so that you didn't have to waste the rapier like you would in Fire Emblem 8's Erica mode. So right now you will get a steel sword from the village in order to, well, you know, still give a sword to the player, but not really have an extra iron sword lying around, because who needs 2 iron swords? Hahaha, looking at you, Ike. That's all for the new gameplay in the game, but there's one little addition that I did make to this patch that you all are going to enjoy. I actually updated the archive for you all. I've heard that a lot of people enjoyed the archive, so I've decided to add some new entries. Chapter 2 is now completely covered, and I've decided to do some little setup for Chapter 3. These archive entries do take a lot of time to make because it has me just, you know, figure out the lore a little more, and that takes a little bit of time. But I do really enjoy writing these, and I try to apply a little style to the writing as if it was Tim who wrote these entries himself. So I hope you enjoyed those little new archive entries. And so the Emma meme that was posted in the Discord, that's now an old meme. Come up with new memes, please. So yeah, that's the new stuff. I will actually dive with you guys into Chapter 6 before we go over all the little miscellaneous changes that I've made to the ROM. So let's go to Chapter 6 and take a look at what changed there. Chapter 6 has only seen some minor changes, not a lot of new gameplay changes besides enemies being in bigger groups now, as well as new reinforcements having been added. The monk reinforcements, as well as the soldier reinforcements, as well as the mercenaries stilling up in the left top corner of the map have now an extra member. The group of mercs now features male and female mercs respectively. And there have been completely new reinforcements added to the game, a bunch of cavaliers accompanied by a troubadour. If at any point you step out the fortress and get to the southmost part of the map, these cavaliers will appear and start chasing you down. They're mainly meant to be cavaliers that sort of attack you when you tread out of the fortress itself. They also serve as a last line of defense for Lawrence. They try to rush in and stop you, but most of the time you'll just have kicked Lawrence's ass by then. Lena, the leader of the rebel faction, does have some altered dialogue now due to feedback being given that Lena actually had some dialogue that was a little bit too modern for a Fire Emblem game, which for the most part features dialogue that has been kind of living up to the medieval/fantasy standards. So thank you Flippercat from the Discord server for giving me that little teeny tiny bit of feedback. It has been worked into the game itself. The door at the middle bottom section of the fortress will now open itself around Chapter 5, which allows some monks to get in via this new created opening. Basically, I've decided to make some more dents in your little fortress so that enemies can keep pouring in and put Lena under pressure. This is perhaps one of my favorite maps so far due to the fact that I just, had a lot of fun putting enemies down and that they seem to be working out very well. Chapter 6 is still the final chapter of the ROM, so yeah, if you reach that chapter, have some fun and let the ROM end on a high note for this current patch. With all that being covered, let's actually dive into some miscellaneous changes that I've made to Fire Emblem The Prophecy of Flames in order to, give you all a better experience. So first of all, I've done a big color rework on palettes and portraits alike. A lot of saturated colors have now become a lot less saturated due to me toning down the colors themselves. Jared's dark brown hair is not as dark anymore, instead it has become a lighter shade of brown entirely. The Dredagonian soldiers also have a less saturated blue now, which I think looks much better on them than the blue they had before. And even on the main character of the hack, Tim, there has been some color changes. His armor looks a little bit different, but the most stunning is the color of his hair. The brown has become a lot less darker and a lot less saturated, and this even reflects his maps right now. On screen are a couple of examples of portraits that have been updated from their previous and newer versions, so I hope you like these new changes that have been made. Next up, I've made some changes to a variety of weapons, mainly the bows. Bows are now simply better, I have buffed them. An iron bow in the previous version used to have 6 might, 85 hit and 5 weight, which has now been increased to 7 might and 90 hit. The weight stays the same. The mini bow has also become more powerful, with the mini bow now having 6 might compared to the original 4, having the same amount of hit and the same amount of weight, so literally just a power increase for the mini bow. In general, most of the bows in the game actually had a sort of power buff. The steel bow, for an example, has 1 more might and the weight has dropped with a single point. The silver bow also kind of has this, with having a little bit more power and a little bit more punch to them. The longbow as well has a little bit more might, but the hit rate stays the same, due to longbows preferring, that extra ranged attack over, the extra hit rate. So yeah, bows have been increased in power due to me finding my archer, Damien, also kind of weak compared to the rest of the game's units. And whilst they haven't appeared yet, short bows will stay the same. There will be 1-2 range mini bows with a little bit of extra critical hit and slightly more might. The reason I'm doing this is because, well, short bows were never the problem really, and I felt like nomads who wield those things already were good on their own right. I'm not going to change the short bow, they're going to be just these little short bows, they'll stay the same. But yeah, so bows have been buffed in this version. Not ballistas, just bows. Whilst this weapon hasn't appeared in the game just yet, I do want to mention the significant change to the Devil Axe in Fire Emblem The Prophecy of Flames. The original Sacred Stone's Devil Axe had a grand total of 18 might, 18 weight, 55 hit, and 0 crit. Well, I've decided to change this up a little bit because the Devil Axe has become a bit of a meme. Aside the just huge experience gain that you get for weapon experience when using the Devil Axe, it's still a bit of a joke weapon that isn't really that useful. So I've decided to amp up the stats a little bit. Its 55 hit rate has now been increased to 70, and its weight has been decreased from 18 to 15 instead. Because, this weapon was already bad enough with the fact that it may injure its wielder, so why not just add a little bit of extra hit rate and decrease the weight a little bit? 15 is still a lot, but really 18 was a little too much in my opinion. Oh, and if you guys can keep a little secret, there is a weapon in the game's files now that deals damage to brigands, pirates, berserkers, marauders, thieves, rogues, and assassins. It's a weapon that deals bonus damage to raiders. When it will appear, who knows? I might include it in the future, but for now, just know that a weapon is going to be out there later down the line. There's a bunch of other changes that have been made, but I can't really go into depth because I've forgotten about a lot of subtle changes I've made, but you will notice those when you do start playing the game, so have fun with that! That's gonna do it for this particular update of Fire Emblem The Prophecy of Flames. It's kind of funny how when my channel is now at like its 5th birthday, this new patch releases to the public. It's kind of funky how I planned it like that, which was totally planned, of course. Yeah, totally planned. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this new version. As you might have expected, or as you might know, the link to the patch is in the description. It's a UPS patch, so please don't expect a full patched ROM to be there. You guys know how to patch ROM, right? You guys know that. You've been in the community for a while, probably. I want to give a huge shout out to my Discord and the people who've played the hack for providing me with feedback, as well as positive support so that I can keep making this project be the best it is. Yeah, and as well as if you like this particular new series, then make sure to let me know that by smashing the thumbs up, giving this video loads of views, sharing it with friends, use code XP in the description to get... Nah, just kidding, I don't have sponsors, no one wants to sponsor this garbage. Anyway, if you like this video, let me know in any form or way that you like this new format of me announcing the patches that have been released. That way, I can see that you guys like the form I'm releasing the patches in like this. So, yeah, with that all being said, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe and all that yip yap. And I hope to see you guys again next time with a new video. There's people working outside. I really don't hope the microphone caught on to that. See you guys later. Bye.